What if I told you that the next Tesla product isn't a car? It's a house, and it could cost less than what most people spend on a used vehicle. Right now, people are absolutely losing it over what's being called Tesla's tiny house. And it's not just hype for the sake of hype. We're talking about a fully functional, ultra-modern home that can generate its own power, operate off-grid, and potentially eliminate your monthly utility bills almost entirely. And here's the part that really doesn't sound real. Some early estimates suggest it could cost under $15,000. Yeah, less than a car. But this isn't just about saving money. This could completely flip how people think about living, ownership, and financial freedom. The real question is this actually the future of housing, or just another overhyped tech idea that sounds better than it works? Because once you really understand what's happening here, you might start questioning everything you thought you needed in a home. Let's be honest for a second. Owning a home today feels completely out of reach for a massive number of people. In many cities, home prices have exploded past $400,000, $500,000, even pushing into the $1 million range. And rent? That's not any better. People are spending 40, sometimes 50% of their income just to live in a space they don't even own. If you're in your 20s or 30s right now, it can feel like you're stuck in a system that's almost impossible to win. You're told to save, but inflation eats away at your money. You're told to invest, but markets feel unpredictable. And somehow, you're still expected to come up with a massive down payment just to get started. That's why something like a Tesla tiny house is hitting such a nerve. Because it doesn't just look cool, it represents a potential escape. An escape from 30-year mortgages, an escape from rising rent, and most importantly, an escape from feeling financially trapped in a system that never seems to favor you. At first, the idea of Tesla building houses sounds completely random, but when you zoom out, it actually makes perfect sense. Tesla was never just a car company. From the beginning, it's been about energy. They build solar panels, battery storage systems like the Powerwall, and entire ecosystems designed to help people generate and store their own power. So if you think about it, a house is the missing piece. What's the point of producing your own energy if your home isn't designed to fully use it efficiently? This is where things start to click. A compact, optimized living space combined with Tesla's energy technology creates something much bigger than just a house. It becomes a self-sustaining system. And if Tesla can package that into something affordable, they're not just entering the housing market, they're challenging the entire foundation of it. So what exactly is this tiny house? Picture a compact, modern structure, roughly the size of a small studio apartment, but designed with extreme efficiency in mind. This isn't about luxury in the traditional sense. It's about intelligent design. Every inch of space has a purpose. Furniture can fold, shift, or serve multiple functions. Storage is hidden, integrated, and optimized. The layout is designed so that even though it's small, it doesn't feel cramped. It feels intentional. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Some versions of this concept suggest mobility, meaning the house isn't locked to a single location. You could potentially move it, reposition it, or place it in areas where traditional homes wouldn't even be an option. Imagine setting up your home in a remote area, surrounded by nature, or just outside a major city, without needing to rely on existing infrastructure. That's the vision. A home that exists on your terms, not the system's. But the real magic of this idea isn't just the design, it's the technology inside. This is where things go from interesting to almost unbelievable. Tesla's solar technology plays a central role here. High-efficiency solar panels can generate enough energy to power the entire home throughout the day. But energy generation is only half the equation. The real breakthrough is storage. That's where the Powerwall comes in. It stores excess energy so you can use it at night, during cloudy days, or even during outages. So in theory, this house could operate completely off-grid. No reliance on utility companies, no monthly electricity bills, no worrying about blackouts. And it doesn't stop there. Smart home integration means you could control lighting, temperature, and energy usage directly from your phone. The system could even optimize itself automatically, adjusting energy consumption in real time to maximize efficiency. Think about that for a second. A home that generates its own power, stores it, and intelligently manages it without constant input from you. That's not just convenient. That's a completely different way of living. What most people aren't even thinking about yet is how fast this kind of idea could evolve once it actually hits the market. Because Tesla doesn't operate like a traditional company. They iterate fast. The first version of anything they release is almost never the final version. It improves, it scales, and it gets cheaper over time. So even if the first generation of a tiny house isn't perfect, that's not the point. The point is what happens in version 2, version 3, version 5. Imagine these homes getting smarter every year. Better energy efficiency, improved materials, faster setup, even AI systems that learn your habits and optimize everything automatically. Now combine that with mass production, and suddenly the cost drops even further while the performance increases. That's when things start to get really disruptive, because it's no longer just an alternative. It becomes the obvious choice. And when a product becomes the obvious choice, entire industries don't just get challenged, they get replaced. Now let's talk about the number that's making everyone stop and pay attention: the price. Because this is where things start to feel almost unreal. Some projections suggest that a Tesla tiny house could cost around $15,000. Even if that number ends up being higher, let's say $25,000 or even $30,000, it's still dramatically cheaper than traditional housing. Think about what that means. Instead of taking on a massive loan, committing to decades of payments, and paying thousands in interest, you could potentially own your home outright. No mortgage, no long-term debt, no constant financial pressure hanging over your head. That's why people are reacting so strongly to this idea. Because it doesn't just reduce the cost of housing, it completely changes the financial structure of it. And once people realize there's another option, it becomes very difficult to go back to the old way of thinking. Now, this kind of setup isn't for everyone. Let's be clear about that. But for the right person, this could be life-changing. If you're a young professional trying to escape insane rent prices, this makes a lot of sense. If you're a digital nomad who can work from anywhere, this is freedom on a whole new level. If you value flexibility, mobility, and independence more than having a massive living space, this becomes incredibly appealing. And for people who are simply tired of the traditional system, mortgages, bills, constant financial pressure, this offers something completely different: control. But there's a deeper layer here. This isn't just about affordability, it's about mindset. Choosing something like this means rethinking what you actually need to live well. It means letting go of the idea that bigger is always better and replacing it with something smarter. Now imagine what daily life actually looks like in a setup like this. You wake up in a home that you fully own. There's no debt attached to it. No stress about monthly payments. No background anxiety about finances constantly draining your energy. You step outside, and your environment is your choice. Maybe you're surrounded by nature. Maybe you're just outside a busy city, but still disconnected from its chaos. Your energy is self-generated. Your expenses are minimal. And your time? That's where things really change. Because instead of working just to sustain your living situation supports your freedom. You're no longer tied to one location. You're not locked into a system that demands decades of commitment just to feel stable. That opens up possibilities most people rarely experience: more travel, more flexibility, more control over how you spend your time. And once someone experiences that kind of freedom, going back to the traditional way of living starts to feel outdated. Of course, not everyone is convinced. Some people look at this idea and immediately push back. It's too small. It's not practical for families. It feels like a downgrade compared to traditional homes. And those concerns are valid. Then there are legal challenges. Zoning laws and regulations could make it difficult to place tiny homes in certain areas. And let's not ignore the biggest question: whether Tesla can actually deliver something like this at scale for the price people are expecting. Because right now, a lot of this is still based on projections and concepts. But here's the thing: every major disruption starts this way. People doubted electric cars. They doubted reusable rockets. And now both of those ideas have reshaped entire industries. So the real question isn't whether there are challenges. The question is whether Tesla can solve them. If they can, this could have massive consequences for the housing market, because suddenly the barrier to entry drops dramatically. You don't need a massive loan. You don't need decades of payments. You don't need to depend on traditional infrastructure. And when a cheaper, more efficient alternative exists, people start to pay attention. Not just consumers, but entire industries. Developers, governments, investors. Everyone starts adjusting. We've seen Tesla do this before. They didn't just compete in the car market, they forced the entire industry to evolve. And if they bring that same level of disruption into housing, this could mark the beginning of an entirely new category of living. And when you zoom out even further, this starts to look like part of a much bigger vision. This isn't just about tiny houses, it's about self-sustaining systems, a world where individuals can generate their own energy, manage their own resources, and operate independently from large centralized systems. It's the same philosophy behind building sustainable environments in extreme conditions, even on other planets. So in a way, this tiny house isn't just a product, it's a preview of a future where independence becomes the default, not the exception. So now the real question becomes personal. If you had the option to live in a fully self-powered, affordable home like this, would you take it? Or would you stick with the traditional path? mortgages, long-term debt, and rising costs? Because whether Tesla delivers this exact version or not, the idea itself is already out there, and once people start seeing a different way to live, it's very hard to unsee it.